Hello and welcome to Knitting on the Lake. My name is Kelly and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining today. And before I get started, I just wanted to do a quick reminder up front to please subscribe and like this video if you are enjoying this content. I am a Boston-based knitter, and I also sometimes exist in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts as well. And I like to get on here to talk about my works in progress, finished objects, as well as different topics surrounding the fiber arts, chiefly in knitting and yarn, and I'm starting to dabble a little bit in crochet, so we'll see. But for now, this is a knitting podcast, and I'm really glad you're here. Okay, so for the first time, I am not wearing anything at all. I am very hot right now in my house. The weather is doing all sorts of crazy things here in New England. It's cold, it's hot. And I think that's like a song by Katy Perry or something. But anyway, I just cannot deal with wearing any sort of sweater right now, or anything on my neck or head. So I'm just wearing a t-shirt. So, eventually we'll get our air conditioning fired up, but for now, I am just trying to exist comfortably, and so thank you for your patience. So today I am not going to share anything that I'm working on in terms of my knitting. I want to talk about a particular topic that has been very interesting and maybe even a little peculiar to me over the past year or so, and that is the idea of a Rhinebeck sweater. So just to get started, we're gonna address what is Rhinebeck, because I can't assume that just because you're here watching a knitting podcast that you have all the prior knowledge of Rhinebeck, because a year or so ago, I didn't really either. I wasn't really tapped into the knitting community online and social media. So I was definitely among the uninitiated and the blissfully unaware. And so basically, when you hear people talk about Rhinebeck, what that really refers to is chiefly the New York Sheep and Wool Festival, which takes place over a weekend in the middle of October every year. And it is an event that occurs on Saturday and Sunday. It is at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds in New York State in the Hudson Valley. And over time, the New York Sheep and Wool Festival has grown so much in interest. Tens of thousands of people attend each year. And so other, organizer types have sort of gotten the idea to create these auxiliary festivals that happen in the lead up to New York Sheep and Wool Festival, which they've changed a little bit over the years, but I think for now there are 3 primary mini festivals. I mean, it's hard to call them mini because they're really fully fledged events in and of themselves. They just happen to be quite a bit smaller than New York Sheep and Wool, which is enormous. But anyway, this year, those festivals are Indie Untangled, A Woolen Affair, and Cake Palooza, at least as far as I am aware. Last year was my first time attending New York Sheep and Wool. I went on Saturday only, and I had my 10-year-old son, Eamon, along with me, and we had a great time. He was definitely a little less interested in the shopping aspects of going to the festival, but he was very patient, and he really did enjoy himself as well. There's a lot of animal themed events and exhibits that he really enjoyed, especially everything relating to dogs, because we are definitely a dog family. I don't want to talk too much about what the festival is and how to navigate, and I would leave that for someone who has been going to New York Sheep and Wool for years. I'm by no means an expert, having attended only once, but I do plan to attend again this year. I only went to New York Sheep and Wool, and I went for only one day this year I am planning to add India Untangled and a Woolen Affair. I do have my tickets for a Woolen Affair already, but I need to wait until the tickets for India Untangled go on sale on this coming Saturday, actually, the 31st of May, to know for sure if I'm going to that as well. My son is not going to be joining me this year, so I do have the flexibility to add that Friday. So I'm really looking forward to that. But again, I'm not going to talk a lot about the festivals themselves, but what I do want to address is this phenomenon of a Rhinebeck sweater. So again, you may or may not have heard people talk about this concept of a Rhinebeck sweater, but I'm sure it means different things to different people. But when I hear this, what I interpret it as is it's a sweater that one makes in order to wear it to New York Sheep and Wool or the associated festivals that happen that weekend in October. And it has been very interesting to me to see the different approaches that people take with this endeavor. So one such approach would be to simply look at what you have already. Maybe look at, assuming that you do want to wear something that you have made, which it seems like quite a lot of people who go to the festival do, just sort of as a matter of course. You might just look at what you have made over the course of the past year, or maybe even further back, and decide what you would like to wear. Maybe it's something that you particularly enjoyed making, or something that you were proud of making in the past year. You kind of pick your favorite and you put it on. Maybe you're deciding based on the weather, what the weather is like. The weather, just like this time of year, in October, the weather in the Hudson Valley can be variable, and you never know if it's going to be 35 degrees or 75 degrees. And it's possible that it could be 35 degrees in the morning and 75 degrees in the afternoon, which is kind of what happened when I went last year. So I actually had two different sweaters that I wore at different times of the day. That was actually a really great plan. I can't say that I have the exact same plan this year. I will pause here just to show you the sweaters that I made last year. And then I'll put them up on the screen, and I will talk about them when I kind of get to that point in the approach and how I think about Rhinebeck sweaters and what I think is a nice, maybe like a little bit of an off the beaten path way to approach a Rhinebeck sweater. Okay, so assuming then, if you don't want to just pick something out of your existing collection on that weekend, and you wanted to plan in advance to make a Rhinebeck sweater, one approach would be to try to make something really unique and special. Maybe try to wear something that no one else is wearing, and to stand out. A lot of people try to do this with their fashion, and every day they would like to be more unique and maybe show their creativity, show their skill as a knitter. I think, you definitely see a lot of that. And I think that is a really nice way to go. The other way to go on I would say the opposite end of the spectrum of being unique and special and no one else is going to be wearing what you're wearing, is the idea of doing one of these massive knit-alongs for a Rhinebeck sweater for a really popular designer that basically culminates in a giant meetup of all of these people who wear the same sweater to Rhinebeck, to New York Sheep and Wool Festival, have a big meetup at one point in the day on the hill, and get to say hi to each other, maybe ask what yarns you used, all of that, and take a big picture. And, it is quite a spectacle, I would say. And there's a lot of these kinds of knit-alongs that go on, and they range in size from 5 people to hundreds of people, and I am not exaggerating when I say hundreds. I hope I can find a good picture to put up on the screen to show you the Andrea Mowry framed sweater picture. I might have to snag it from Instagram, so it might have some like extra information on the photograph, but suffice it to say that I was completely aware that this knit along was going on, but nothing could have prepared me for the scene that ensued of just the mass of people wearing the same sweater. It's fascinating. So again, we have this spectrum. We have like, I want to make something along with a huge number of people, have this kind of community experience, this communal collective experience of making the same pattern, maybe probably communicating with one another along the way, cheering each other on, sharing your progress, seeing, what yarns people are using, what modifications people might be making to the pattern, and, just showing up and having everyone be wearing the same thing as what you're wearing. And then again, the other end of the spectrum being more, unique, particular, special, maybe a flex of some kind that is an opportunity for you to express yourself. So I would like to tell you, first, I will back up and tell you how I approached this last year, kind of before I had an opportunity to think too deeply about all of this. I took the approach of wearing a couple of sweaters that I had test knit for different designers. The one that I wore in the morning was my Pianta Pullover, and I test knit that for Lavanya Patricella. And she was at the event doing a book signing, so I really wanted to first of all, the sweater was a good choice because it's very warm, and it was good for the early morning chilly temperatures. And so I wore it all morning, and I didn't even need a coat over it. And I went midday to her book signing, met up with her, took a cute picture together in our Pianta pullovers, and I then did a quick change in the car, took off my Pianta pullover because it was starting to sweat, and then put on my Good Harbor cardigan, which I knit up as a test knit for the designer Alice Dunn Smith, and she is Birch Tree Knits. If you've been watching this podcast along the way, you've heard me talk about Alice a lot because I have done a lot of test knitting for her. I've made a lot of her patterns. She is a local designer here in the Boston area, and I know her also from my knitting group. And so I really love to support my local designers. Obviously, I like to support my friends as well. So I wore the Good Harbor cardigan the second half of the day, and we also did a little meetup on the hill and took a little picture with a group of people who had also done the same. So after my experience taking in all of the sweaters at last year's New York Sheep and Wool, I immediately started thinking about what I wanted to have as my Rhinebeck sweater for 2025. And I quickly honed in on a particular pattern that is called the Lapponia. And this is a fingering weight pullover. It's technically all over color work. As you can see, I'm putting up the picture on the screen. The designer is Veera Valimaki, and I really love this design so much. I love the simplicity and the striking quality of the color work. I really have a thing for the Swiss cross motif. I don't know why. It's just a plus sign. It's really not that complicated or exciting, but I really enjoy seeing that. Maybe it's because I'm a skier and I'm used to seeing that kind of motif for like ski patrol. It's also Switzerland, and I love Switzerland, but anyway, That's neither here nor there. So the sample that Veera made for this design, I love the colors of the sample, by the way, but I wanted to do something unique and different. The sample was done in superwash wool. I opted to look more for like a little bit more of a toothy, hardier yarn. I haven't knit a lot with those kinds of yarns, particularly in the fingering weight. So something that I wanted to kind of try for the first time. I wanted to back up just a little bit and explain another thing that was appealing to me about this pattern, aside from the design, which I think is wonderful. I think it looks like it's a sweater that's going to fit me very well. It's a style that I know I can wear. I love the color work, but I also loved that there's not thousands of projects on Ravelry. This isn't a pattern that you see in like the zeitgeist of Instagram or YouTube. People are not like talking about this. It's an older pattern. It's from at least a few years ago. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will put that on the screen as well, or in the show notes. So I feel like this is kind of one of those hidden gems that that's not an outlandish pattern. I think it's a pattern that would be appealing to a lot of people, given that it is color work, but it's not a complicated color work pattern. You don't really have to deal with super long floats at any point. It looks like a pattern that a lot of people should want to make, but for whatever reason, this one just didn't hit. So I like that because for me personally, like I totally understand the desire and the drive to kind of go the route of the giant designer or yarn company knit along. I really prefer to make something that is unique and hopefully different than what everyone else is wearing. And I was able to achieve that last year, but I'm hoping to do that again. Now, I want to also explain before I share with you my yarns for the pattern. It's not that I care a lot about what people think about what I wear, because I don't. Like, I dress to feel like confident and comfortable. But I think that when you wear something unique and something that stands out and draws the eye at a festival like this among people who are in your tribe, so to speak, it becomes like a conversation starter, and it invites people to talk to you, to ask you questions. Who designed that pattern? What is it called? What yarn did you use? Oh my gosh, I love that. That is so cool. It's so different. It's so unique. And as a person who tends to go to these things by myself, that's really appealing because I love talking to people. I love meeting people. And so I think anything that you can do to like kind of invite conversation is fantastic. Okay, now I'm going to share with you the yarns that I will be using for my Lapponia. I decided to, again, kind of forego the superwash wool approach and do a yarn that I think is probably more suitable to color work of this nature. And it is the Tynn Pure Gynt yarn. Now, I've neither used Pure Gynt nor Tynn Pure Gynt or any of the other Pure Gynt derivatives there are. So this is a yarn I will be trying for the first time. And for those who are not as familiar with this yarn, it is a very popular yarn, very commonly used. Maybe the fingering weight version is not quite as commonly used as just regular Pure Gynt, but it is a woolly wool. It is 100% Norwegian wool. And it has a reputation for being like a really, really good yarn for color work. It doesn't have the reputation for being like the softest, cushiest yarn on the market. So, it's Norwegian wool. It is, a woollier wool. But Pure Gynt and all the derivative ones, including Tynn Pure Gynt, also has a great color palette. And that was really important to me because, again, I'm an interior designer. I care a lot about color, and I had a very specific vision of the types of colors that I wanted to use for this sweater, for the Lapponia. So my background color, my main color, unfortunately it's going to blend a little bit with my green shirt, but this is, I don't know the names, they only are numbers on the labels. The color number is 9080, but I can tell you that this is it is a gray green color, and hopefully you can see the nuance of that on the screen, even though I am wearing this different green shirt. So I really love this. I think this is a color that sets off brighter colors so beautifully. And I love the subtlety of the green nuance in this gray. So that's going to be the main color, the background color. Then for those stripes that you see, I'm going to hold things in the middle because I think I'm going to need to do a split screen to show you both the pattern and the yarns. I am going to be, for the stripy motif, the like jaggedy stripes, I will be using this light blue color. And the color number of this is 5811. So again, it's a very subtle powdery blue color. So not terribly exciting yet, but wait till you see what I'm using for the Swiss crosses. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit cliche, but I will be using this poppy red color for the crosses, and the color number is 4008, I believe, 4008. And you know, I can show you like what they look like together. I mean, the contrast is obviously very strong. You know, there's no chance that you're not going to see each one of these elements standing out beautifully on this like dark gray green background. I don't have anything like this in my wardrobe yet in terms of this color combination or anything really remotely close to it. So I think it's going to be really cool. But again, this gray green background color, this is a type of color that I wear a lot. Anything green or like derivative of green, like is kind of in my comfort zone. And then, you know, what I'm adding to it, like that's what kind of adds the variety and the uniqueness. So that is my Lapponia sweater, which I plan to wear to New York Sheep and Wool. And whether I wear it actually at New York Sheep and Wool or at the festivals on Friday, I think is a question mark. It's going to depend a little bit on the weather forecast for each day and the time of day that I'm going to be there. But I do have actually not one, but two Rhinebeck sweater plans. And because I have these 2 days that I have to manage, and I don't want to wear the same sweater 2 days in a row. I think it's, you know, part of the fun is like breaking out different pieces in your wardrobe. I'm actually working on a test knit for the designer Megan Monroe, and she is like a master knitter. She does a lot of test knits, sample knits. She teaches knitting, but she's recently started to self-publish some of her own patterns, which are really great. I think it was her first self-published pattern last year, which was the farmer's market dress. And that was the first dress, and so far the only dress that I have ever made. And I took the opportunity to sign up for another test knit with Megan, which is called the Mile Marker Pullover. And I specifically signed up for this because I wanted to try a new type of yarn for the first time. Now, this pattern is designed with Boucle yarn, and Boucle is not something I have ever used. I can show you what Boucle, if you're not familiar with Boucle yarn, it has these little loops that are kind of sticking out from an inner thread, and it creates a very fleecy, lofty fabric, very like squishy and light, but also could be very densely knit too, depending on your gauge. And when I originally saw this pattern, I shopped around a little bit for Boucle yarns with a DK weight, because that's what the pattern gauge was. It was a little bit tricky for me to find what I was looking for. And I could have just gone with the recommended yarn for this, which was Explorer Knits Boucle DK. But I thought maybe I will try to support, they're on the West Coast. Maybe I'll try to find like a more local source for this type of yarn and support a local company. I did some research and I found a Boucle yarn with Knit Collage, which is a brand that you may or may not be familiar with. They have a lot of what I would call novelty yarns that combine different media, like different types of fibers with like sari silks and fabrics and, you know, things that are kind of all spun up together. A lot of really brightly colored things, color changing yarns. And this particular yarn that I found with Knit Collage is unique in that it doesn't have any of the stuff that I just talked about, but it is a type of Boucle yarn. It's, I would call it like a little bit more of a fleecy yarn. It's called Serenity. Yeah, Serenity. And it's 85% wool and 15% nylon. So the fabric composition is kind of like what you would expect. So Megan designed the mile marker to be either 3-color or 2-color. And I found this lovely palette, this really subtle, lovely palette with the periwinkle blue being kind of the main color, and then incorporating these two neutrals, like an off-white and like a sandy, you know, light tan color. I thought this would just be a beautiful, like very kind of like a beachy looking color scheme, you know, like the sea and the sand, all that jazz. So the range that Knit Collage gave for the gauge for this yarn was very big. It's between 3 and 6 stitches per inch. That translates to between 12 and 24 stitches over 4 inches, which is a huge range for a yarn to claim to be able to be knit up into. And it is classified as a bulky weight yarn, but I needed to hit in that DK range. So something between the 4 and the 6, well, the 4 and the 5 really. So I figured, okay, if I'm between 4 and 5 stitches per inch, I can make this work. And that should be possible because I can get up to 6 stitches per inch, right? So I did a gauge swatch, and almost immediately I realized that there was no way I was going to get anything approaching a DK gauge, like a 18 to 20 stitches per inch. No way at all. I was more like 13 or 14 stitches per inch. And I was swatching with a size 4 needle, which is kind of a crazy needle size to use for a bulky weight yarn. Like, it's not comfortable. It's like using like a toothpick to knit with a rope. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So I was very disappointed because I feel like the information provided by the yarn company was not accurate. Like I would like to see, I would like the proof that someone actually got 6 6 stitches to the inch with this yarn in any needle size. Like, I would like to see it because I can't even see anyone getting 4. That's how much this really is a bulky weight yarn. So I have all this yarn. It's huge. It's enormous. It came in a box just for one sweater. And now I don't know what I'm going to do with it. That's another topic for another day. So rather than going and searching for other, DK weight boucle yarns, I just said I'm going to order from the recommended yarn supplier, which is Explorer Knits. And I'm so happy that I made that choice. I did wind the yarns. I started off thinking I'm going to do a 2-color version of the mile marker in this. This is the linen colorway, and this is fur, which really is very close, like a darker version of the green that I'm wearing right now. However, I happened to go on their website to see, what they happen to have in stock. They don't typically stock a lot of their yarns. They have like a pre-order system, and they launch collections and have you pre-order what you want from each base in those particular limited edition colors. So when I ordered these, there really wasn't anything else available. Like, these were the only choices in the quantity that I needed, and they happen to just be the perfect choices for me and the types of colors that I like. And I happened to go on the website about a week ago and saw this other color called Brooklyn Brownstone. It's from the Leave No Trace collection, which is a more recent collection. So I don't know how those kind of came to be back in stock, but I decided to place an order for a couple of hanks of that colorway. And so I'm waiting for that to arrive. And provided that the brown isn't too much of like the same value or like the same level of darkness as this green, I think I'll go ahead and use that and have a 3-color mile marker pullover. And I'm really excited for this design. Again, I think it's a unique design. The color work is simple. It has these like plus signs. Apparently, like, I'm really into that for some reason. Maybe it's the irony of the fact that like I am not like a positive person all the time. Like, I can be a little bit cynical. So like, I'll just wear plus signs and everything will be okay. And I'll be a positive person. But anyway, so I'm thinking that this will definitely be done by the end of the summer. So it's on the table for wearing at Rhinebeck. And it's the kind of sweater that, again, I'm not sure anyone else is going to be wearing this yet because it's going to be a newer pattern. If the weather cooperates, I would like to actually wear this on Friday, because I know Explorer Knits is going to be a vendor at Indie Untangled. So I'd love to be able to show up at their booth in a sweater that uses the yarn that they're making. And I think Megan collaborated with Explorer Knits, and she is a frequent collaborator with them. So I'm happy to support them, happy to be using this yarn that is actually a DK weight of boucle. And wish me luck knitting with this, because I've heard things about boucle that it is a little tricky. I can definitely foresee my needles getting stuck in the loops. If you have any tips to share, if you have worked with boucle, I'm kind of thinking maybe my Chalgoos are gonna sit this one out, and I'll use my Lantern Moon ebony needles. That's my interchangeable set that I have. That might be a better choice, maybe a little less likely to get stuck, inserting those into the loops. So we will see. I need to swatch for this soon. As soon as I get the other yarn, I'm gonna decide if I'm making the 2-color or the 3-color version. And I'll be sure to update you on this one, you know, as we go on this podcast, as well as the Lapponia. In terms of timing for the Lapponia, I don't have a deadline for that as I do with the mile marker, and most likely the mile marker will be finished before the Lapponia. I will probably start knitting the Lapponia sometime in July or August, and my deadline is obviously that it will be finished, blocked, and ready to wear for Rhinebeck, and probably the New York sheep and wool portion of the Rhinebeck weekend. So those are my Rhinebeck sweater plans. I don't disparage or disregard anyone's approach to knitting a Rhinebeck sweater. I think everything is valid and interesting, and I'm just sort of here spectating and being interested in what I'm seeing, and it's fascinating, really. Like, it's just such a gathering of people, of knitters, of yarn aficionados, and I'm just here to experience it all. And, you know, as I approach my life, you know, this is really no different from how I approach the rest of my life, which is that, like, especially in my older age, like, I'm just going to do things the way that I want to do them, rather than like how I think everyone else is doing them, or how I think I should do them based on what other people are doing. Like, I personally want to do something that is a little more off the beaten path, but not outlandish. Certainly these designs are not like outlandish. They're not exceedingly complicated. They're definitely in my comfort zone in terms of like the color work. Definitely doable for me. But I love, again, I tend to be very color driven, and so I love the opportunity to play with color here and maybe create combinations that are a little bit different than what other people may be showing up with. So now I'd love to hear from you. Do you have an opinion on Rhinebeck sweater making or wearing? Do you favor one approach over the other? Do you like the communal, collective knit along with the big meetup at the end of everyone wearing the same sweater? Do you like to make a special sweater that's unique and that maybe fewer people have? Do you like to support a smaller designer, or perhaps just pull something out of your closet on that day, depending on your whim? I'd love to know what your style and approach is, what your philosophy might be, and even what your plans are for this year. If you have a specific plan to make a Rhinebeck sweater, please comment below so we can talk about it. That is all the time I have for today. Thank you so much again for joining me. If you liked this video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to Knitting on the Lake channel. I do usually post videos weekly. There is a possibility that I may be missing the next 1 to 2 weeks due to travel. And if I have a way to kind of front load and film an episode and share it during that time, I will, but I'm just giving you a heads up that I might be away for a couple of weeks due to a couple of different travel opportunities with my family. So looking forward to that. But in the meantime, looking forward to starting the conversation with you about Rhinebeck sweaters. It's not too early to start planning. It is already just about June, and by the time you watch this, perhaps it already is June or later. And, you know, also please feel free to tell me what you're planning to do that weekend. If you're going to the festival, if you're doing any of the other events on Friday, maybe we can meet up. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.